If you want to increase your Bitcoin mining profitability, but even more so increase your Bitcoin mining customization, overclocking, underclocking potential, then this aftermarket control board may be exactly what you're looking for. Today we're going to be reviewing the Epic UMC, which is basically a Bitcoin mining focused company, and the control board that they built, it's kind of like putting different firmware on your mining rig, but the only fee is a one-time fee to buy the control board. There's no developer fee, there's no update fee, there's no other fees associated. And that's what makes this one of the most intriguing options on the market. And so far, they've just focused on Bitcoin mining with their control boards. And they are building control boards for more than just the Bitmain Antminer S19 series right now. Previously, Epic Blockchain Technologies has released Bitcoin as well as altcoin mining rigs. So I'm curious and hopeful that these will support altcoin mining rigs as well. My name is Vosk, by the way. You're on the VoskCoin YouTube channel. And it's a pretty funny story why I ended up using this anyway. I've been deploying Braiins on a lot of different versions of my Bitcoin miners, but I ran into a model that Braiins did not support. Ironically, Braiins supports almost every Antminer S19 model at this point, except for just a few, including the rare Antminer S19 90 terahash a second version I have, but only the 128 chip version is unsupported. The 88 chip version is. The chips I'm talking about are literally the ASIC chips. They are the application specific integrated circuit chips, the little pieces, the muscle here on the hash board within these mining rigs. So anyway, long story short is I tried to remotely flash Braiins on there, was confused why it wasn't working, looked it up, saw that that model was supposed to work, at least the 90T, not my variant, I found out later, put the Braiins control board on there. Braiins obviously still did not work because they don't have support for that model. And then I was sitting there frustrated and scratching my head. I'm like, you know what? I've got this Epic control board here. Let me just throw it in there at this point and see if it works. This was on my to-do list to, review this, test it, and, see if it's worth pursuing more deployments of these. So throw it in the miner. Right? And how do you do that? Well, we've got a how to do anything, everything, ultimate ASIC, Bitcoin, and crypto mining guide. I encourage you to check out and watch. We also have specific videos on replacing control boards on the Antminer, ASIC miners, and in particular, it's an S19. So very straightforward, very easy stuff, but let's kind of speed run it, right? We've got our miner, we disconnected it from everything. It is off. We got ourselves our handy dandy screwdriver. We loosen the screw on the push piece on the hood of the Antminer, right? We pop that off, and then we have access to the control board. At this point, we can undo all of the attachments, all of the connections, and then we're going to undo the screws in the front, slide the board out through the front, slide the new one in, and then do everything back in reverse order. So at that point, the control board is installed, and it has firmware installed, which should be obvious from the factory on these things. So it should boot right up. Huge shout out to Altair Tech for making today's video possible. Because Epic had expressed interest in sending us a control board to review, then they didn't, and we've linked up with Altair to source all sorts of parts. So we've got stock control boards from him, backup power supplies for the VoskCoin mining farm. We got these Epic control boards from him, and you've probably seen me talk about it in a whole lot of videos recently. We've been deploying the Altair Tech mining PDU all over our farm. We have a referral link in the video description below, but more importantly, we have the code VoskCoin to save you some coin, and you get this thing close to $100 shipped. And these are great PDUs for many reasons. And he also sells mining rigs and all kinds of other stuff. But the bottom line is he's an excellent resource. He's based in the US. Get your stuff shipped quick. It's really all you could ask for, right? So looking at the board, the Epic UMC Universal Mining Control Board and firmware for the Antminer S19. So right now this carries a cost of about $159 for the cost of one before you punch in any coupon codes, things like that. This is universal. It's supposed to be compatible with the S19J, the S19J Pro, the S19J Pro Plus, the S19K Pro, and the S19 XP families. So in particular, right, when we go into my miner, I had the PowerPlay BM V0.32.4. I asked them specifically, have you made many changes since this firmware version? What does it do? Why? And this is exactly what they had to say. They support all S19 variants, so that's cool and something to definitely be proud of. They boast that they have improved the general stability as well as improved the S19K power estimation and performance, and highly recommends that we try it out over the existing firmware version. So this is when I get hit with yet another curveball. So I went over to their firmware page. I download the firmware. It's this one, not the SD recovery one. I will be downloading the SD recovery. I'll explain that here in a second. I get that. I go over to the miner. I go to settings. I go to system. I browse. Right. I select the file and I keep the maintain config. I'm like, all right, send it. Ooh, no, it does not work. For whatever reason, it's not going to remotely update itself, so they've recommended that I do the SD recovery. The SD recovery is basically flashing an SD card with the latest firmware. Basically, you plug the flashed SD card in, and then it will update the firmware via this flash card, and then you'll be good to go. So that is now plus one item on the all to-do list. Before we dig into the control board review, which, spoiler, it's pretty interesting, right? I've been deploying Braiins on a lot of miners and they have their control board, and right, so, why am I looking at other things? Well, one, I love checking everything out in crypto, and this isn't necessarily like the grass is greener and things like that. One thing I think that's intriguing about the Epic control board model is the fact that it has no dev fee. And if we look at the Braiins OS, right, it has a dev fee on any model, and it's a 2.5% developer fee. So I've seen a good performance boost with this. I like Braiins a lot, their operating system, but I cannot deny that this is a hefty developer fee. 2.5% taken out of my bottom line doesn't feel good. It's also very easy to deploy with immersion, which is how we ended up kind of getting a crash course. Yeah, we're definitely deploying Braiins right now because we don't have fan spoofers in our original DCX mining immersion deployment. So when we compare it to the UMC, right, what does it do? It works with all the models, overclocking, underclocking, undervolting, and basically overclocking is you increase your Bitcoin mining hash rate. You're going to increase the amount of Bitcoins you're mining at an additional electrical cost. So it's going to increase your electricity bill, and it's going to be less efficient, right? We're talking about a gas guzzler car versus a very fuel efficient vehicle, for a comparison there. It boasts great API, fleet management because they have their own dashboard and compatible with other major fleet management software, no developer fee, perpetual tuning, and rapid response time to change power states and resume mining after curtailment, which is a very common thing at many mining farms that have unique agreements with their electricity companies and providers. Looking at the board, it's pretty much everything we just went through, but with a little bit of branding, a couple graphs, and in particular they boast that their tuning is just good and that it leads to increased results. They definitely have a clear focus on overclocking with their control boards, which is not necessarily the most interesting thing to me based on my electricity rate. I'm actually interested in better power efficiency. So out of the box, right, the Antminer S19 90 terahash second has an efficiency rating of like 34 joules a terahash or 34 watts a terahash. It's not very good. This is out of the box performance. Haven't touched a thing in the settings. And this is what it's done. It's taken my 90 terahash a second model. It's reduced the power consumption by like 600 watts. It's increased the efficiency of this by almost, approximately 9-10 joules a terahash or watts a terahash. That is a monumental increase. It has increased my hash rate by 15 terahash a second. So I'm mining more efficiently. I am mining with a higher hash rate, and I didn't touch a thing. How did this all happen though, right? So it decided based on what model it thought I had, and this isn't actually the exact model. Maybe with updated firmware, this could be even better. Something we'll pursue and check out, right? Their mining pool config page is a little different than normal too, by the way. You don't put username .worker name. They broke it out into two unique columns right here. Not a big deal, but something to be aware of, something you're not paying attention could trip you up, right? We go to the performance. We can take a preset on the tune here. We can input exact custom information. We can mess with the fan settings. We can mess with the shutdown temperature, all those things. The perpetual tune is basically maintain the target hash rate by perpetually adjusting the voltage for efficiency. And so out of the box, it chose 105 terahash, I guess based on the model it thought that I had. So based on that information, it's been doing what it's been doing. Let's talk about the fan speed while we're here. So this control board does not protect your miner if the fans are not on it. So if you take the fans off and you plug the miner in and it just sits there and bakes, you will fry the miner. It does not have protection. This is an advanced level product without safety protections on that front. So if I want to throw this into immersion, I can just throw this into an immersion tank. I can take the fans right off, done, and it'll just mine. There's no click here for the immersion mining setting, none of that. Guardrails are off, no protection, it'll run. Like, all right then. Bringing it back here, you see I only have an hour performance as I've been trying to get this to update, but I do have a little bit more and better data for you here. So this was 12 hours of uptime. I don't know why it rebooted, 12-13 hours before the screenshot. We can see the associated performance here. It's pretty much in line with what we saw in the dashboard right now. We look at the hash rate over the last 24 hours per the mining pool. That information is right here. We look at the Bitcoin mining revenue. The average hash rate is about 104 terahash a second per the mining pool. This is a bit higher. I do wonder if another miner failed over to this pool and bumped up the hash rate a little bit. So we can just throw out that date, and when we look at the other ones, we're seeing consistent 104 to 105 terahash a second and the associated mining profitability. But the bottom line is I'm saving money off of my electricity bill, and I have a higher hash rate as measured by at the actual pool. So I am earning more and spending less. It's everything you could ask for. But is that worth $150? Well, we'll talk more about that. As far as this being a YouTube video with useful information, I'll drop links to everything that's important here, right, in the video description below. Like, I'll give you a direct link to the firmware. I'll give you a direct link to buying the control board if you'd like to buy one. And if you have any questions, please comment and I'll do my best to respond. And we also have the best subscriber base period ever, but in the crypto space, in the crypto mining space, all that. So a lot of incredible community members chime in down in the comments all the time as well. So the answer you seek is not far away. What's really interesting about this control board, we should talk about while we're right here on this page, is they're developing support for the MicroBT WhatsMiner M30 and M50 series. And those series use the same control boards as even the new M60 series. So something to be aware of, which means that they would probably obviously eventually support that. Is there efficiency gains to be had there? I wonder. But they both said it's going to be one control board to rule them all. I think that's very cool to add additional manufacturer support. If that's possible, that's intriguing. And it can also minimize how many extra spare parts I keep on hand, because that's been a key lesson I've learned as I continue to work on scaling the VoskCoin mining farm, is dude, have spare parts. Sometimes it's very difficult to get specific parts. Sometimes you have to wait. And pretty much, you know, for some of this equipment, if you have the spare part and it saves you even a day, it's probably worth it. So let's bring it back to the miner, right? I enjoy the theme. It looks good. They have a light theme. If you're weird, obviously your boy's going dark theme. I love the information I get here. You know, just at a glance, right out of the box. It's very good. It's very useful. And what I think is very intriguing and I love is the fact that they break down the chip performance by chip. This could be incredible in the event that a repair needs to take place, you know, diagnosing anything, just looking at the general chip health. This is fantastic. And we can also look at the chip clocks, and you can get very precise with your fine tuning. Temperature, when you look at it, it's not quite as exciting as all those other numbers. And same thing when you click on voltage. So this is fantastic information broken down by chip. So we can see chip 113, right? And remember how this is the infamous 128 chip model? Well, where are the other three? Maybe if we update the firmware. I think I keep saying 128. It's the 126 chip model. Jeez. But this is a thread off of VoskCoin Talk. It's the community ran VoskCoin forum and the best crypto forum that has ever existed. Much better than Bitcoin Talk, obviously. So I'm an old school guy, right? I guess I like forums. But some of the key takeaways here, right, is people pretty quickly figured out how much better performance you can get out of the box from these, right? From the factory, looking at his factory performance on this one, 92.5 terahash second, consuming 3,074 watts, 33.23 watts a terahash. And you compare that model to my model, same model, right? But so much better performance out of the box with this control board of 105.5 terahash second per the dashboard here, consuming 2,620 watts at about 25 watts a terahash efficiency, rounding up, not in this miner's favor. So there's a lot of different things you can do, uncorking and things like that that are a bit more tedious and advanced. So Averroes et al. Said you can swap in the Epic UMC board, overclock them, and it's easier to do that than pick replacement, which is what uncorking is. So Jackson, my man, did not waste any time. So he threw this on here. And Jackson never really posted much else of an update or something to work with on that front, but ShredZ did post some interesting information. So basically his final update, and I actually talked to him and he had another update after this, is running the frequency voltage that Bitmain has. 12.8 volts, 425 megahertz, 13.4 volts, 545 megahertz, and getting all the chips listed as healthy. So he's just going to stick to normal / low power mode for now, and we'll test overclocking 120 terahash later. But he was pleased with all of this and enjoyed the experience. It runs 120 terahash at 3,850 watts in his testing here. But a key note here and takeaway is he is running the Luxor firmware here. He had a chip go down on one of the boards at the settings that he was running. He said that his coach from Zeus, that it was a bad idea running those frequencies on the chips. They're AKB M3062 chips, and the normal S19J Pro are ACBM 1362 or AIBM 1362, depending on your model off the top of his head. The boards look exactly the same as first reward. You can run extra 30 terahash. You might have a 5, 10, 15 bill every few months. He's risking it for the biscuit. That's his experience. Wanted to bring it up because it's relevant, and I really appreciate the time that people spend interacting in our community and just the public discourse of it all. Sharing your experiences and your data, in the VoskCoin forum, in the VoskCoin Discord server. It's just better for everyone who's there and engaged and involved. So interesting data as far as my point of view, especially being a nerd here. To bring it back to the actual control board here that I'm running, the Epic UMC, out of the box, I'm blowing these other numbers away and I haven't done a thing. And the performance of this, in my opinion, is so good for where I want to get out of the box. I'm totally happy with this. You talk about the time input I'll need to get a higher reward here. Honestly, I just don't think it's really there for me. obviously I'm still being me. I'm still going to mess around with this stuff and pursue the best possible settings and continue learning and growing as a mining farm operator and content creator, and more importantly, Doge dad. Have you seen my Doug? My Doug is the cutest Doug in the world. But, you know, seriously, right? Like, I'm going to update the firmware on this and review the performance there, and then just go from there. Worst case scenario, I have 2 other epic UMC boards. I'll just throw one with the old firmware in there and let this thing eat. That's kind of where I'm at on this. This is my initial review and experience on the Epic Control Board. I really cannot understate. Apparently I've been saying understate too much recently, but I cannot understate that the fact that I can buy a control board at a one-time fee that really is not all that much more expensive than buying a replacement control board that's just a standard, you know, Bitmain Antminer model with no developer fee but enhanced performance and enhanced capabilities. I absolutely love it. This is cool. I'm impressed. Out of the box, this is nice. I'm disappointed that my firmware won't update. So I'll go do the annoying task of flashing an SD card and trying to get the update that way. But alas, this is the end, at least today. Thanks for watching. You're on the VoskCoin YouTube channel. I hope you subscribe if you haven't already. Stick around or not, and then you're gonna get 21.5 years of bad luck. Is it worth it?